YouTube, vinyl community, Weezer fans, random people on the internet, my name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about Weezer's 2002 live EP, The Lion and the Witch, originally released on Geffen Records on September 24th, which was the exact same day Pinkerton came out in 1996, so that's kind of cool. This album has always been, you can't even call it an album, it's just an EP, it's 6 songs. This album has always been something special in the Weezer canon. One, because they very rarely ever put out anything live, except for B-sides back in the day. But to have like a special release like this back then was hard to find. It only came out at independent record stores, and they only pressed 25,000 of them, which is weird because I have several copies of this on CD, and mine says 29,000 up top. There are reports that up to like 33,000 of these things were printed, so there was a lot of problems that kind of came up with this thing. The band wanted a few more songs on it, but then the record company was like, you know what, if you do that, big box retailers are going to get mad at you guys because you're not giving like a new album to them. If you make it a special thing with 6 songs, you're probably going to be better off. They wanted it to be, this cool little nice cardboard sleeve, like an old album jacket. And the record company was like, well, we got to work with that now instead of just standard jewel cases. Record companies are a lot of fun to deal with. So anyway, this thing came out. I remember when this came out, it was super hard to find. I didn't get it when it first came out. It took me like a year or two to find it. It wasn't just like easily, readily available. And where I was living at the time, there weren't a whole lot of independent record stores that had CDs or records or whatever, because, in the early 2000s, most of those places dried up and you were left with like Strawberries or FYE or something in the mall. And they just didn't get these things. So finding them used has been easier throughout the years. Anyway, this particular copy came out through MoFi, which you can see at the very top here, and I absolutely love the packaging on this thing. It's always been one of my favorite album covers from Weezer. There's something cool about it. I remember, for me, it's a nostalgic thing. I remember I've always loved their logo, and then just seeing it with this picture was cool. I really like the original master recording up top for MoFi. And here's the back cover too. And the cool thing about this too is the original one had this like white border on it. This doesn't. So you actually get more picture on it, which, hey, why not? These were also numbered. This is a really low number. They made 3,000 of these things. This is 623, so that's pretty crazy. But the inside is cool. So it's the exact same thing as the inside of the CD, and with those little remarks from Rupert Peaslee, the name of the guy on the cover of Maladroit, which they made up, and E.O. Smith, which is another name that Rippers uses sometimes. But these were all like fan messages in broken English to the band from their Japanese fans, as this was recorded on their Japanese tour in May of 2002. So all these tracks come from that time. This was in support of Maladroit, their new album at that time, and they played 2 songs from that album and then 1 song each after that from everything else. Nope, 2 from Pinkerton, 1 from Green, 1 from Blue. Which, it's funny because as I was re-listening to this, I was like, man, they only had 4 albums at this time. That's it. They're up to 11 now or something. So it was cool to go back in time with this and remember the band that I fell in love with and what they were like at that time and what they sounded like. The big thing for me on this one was the improvisation. Improvisation. Because they don't do that anymore. They don't come up on stage and just riff and jam for a little bit, then bust into their songs. At that time, this was like their MO. This is just what they did, which I love. So they snuck in one little track at the very beginning to make it basically a 7-song EP, and that's a track called Polynesia. And it's, in essence, it's just an instrumental riffing or a jam, but it's very cool. And it's like the only quote-unquote unreleased song, you can say, that is on like an official quote-unquote release. So like, it's cool to see something that isn't super available to find on an actual thing that's also kind of not super easy to find. That was the clunkiest sentence I've ever written. Thanks for hanging in there, you guys. Let's just jump into this. So the album opens with Dope Nose, which at the time was like their big single. And I love this version. You get that cool Polynesia intro riffing. It's light. There's light guitars kind of, tinkering away, soft drums. And then he just jump into it with Ripper saying, "Good morning, Japan. Welcome to our show." And then that's it. Really tight, really lean. The solo is very much just exactly like on the record, which is cool because that's a really good solo. But yeah, I mean, this it's cool to hear it because the song was new at the time. and it was still fresh, and people had heard it like a million times, which it's fun to go back in time with this, and you can tell they're excited about it, even though for them this song was a couple of years old. This song actually dates back to the summer of 2000 when they came back for their comeback tour, when they played the Warped Tour and everything else, and geared up to the Green album, which came out shortly after. But yeah, great background vocals on this one, really fun guitar solo. You can tell they're really into it. Island in the Sun Live, that was for you Weezer fans, is the second track on this thing. And for a lot of people, this is the bane of Weezer's existence, because for years, every time a single came out with a B-side on it, it was a live version of Island in the Sun. Over and over again. You could not escape this damn song. But I do really enjoy this version because it's an all-electric version. There's no acoustic guitars on it, which they've been doing that probably for the last 10 years or so, maybe more. So it's cool to hear like a really early electric version of a song that was, it's always been a big hit for them, but at the time it was only, a year old, 2 years old. So hearing that live at this point, you can tell they're still excited about it. The fans are going insane for it because it's a new classic Weezer song, so everyone's really enjoying it. But, it's really breezy, but I love what Pat's doing with the cymbal work on this one. He's doing a lot of different kind of dingy things on the bell part of the cymbal, and he's kind of improvising more on the drums, and I like that spirit there. Falling For You closes side one of this EP, and this is really cool because at this time, really brief history here. When Pinkerton came out, it flopped commercially. Fans didn't understand it. It wasn't the Blue Album. It wasn't Buddy Holly. And it didn't sell well. And they toured on it and then basically took a couple of years off, kind of getting together once in a while to jam, rehearse, practice, figure out what they want to do. Came back with the Green Album, which was a complete departure from Pinkerton. It's kind of like the Blue Album, but lighter. And really, the only songs that they would play from that Pinkerton album when they played live were El Scorcho, maybe The Good Life, maybe Tired of Sex. They didn't really delve too deep into that album because Rivers was embarrassed by it. He was kind of ashamed by it for a long time, well up until the late 2000, like 2010 when the Memories tour happened and they ended up playing the whole album live. So it took a long time for them to be like comfortable with it, or maybe specifically to have Rivers be comfortable with it. Anyways, this song is kind of a rare treat. They didn't play it a whole lot at that time. I mean, it came out once in a while, but it wasn't like a standard part of their set list. And you can tell that they were nervous about playing it because at one point, in the beginning of the song, Rivers says like, "Dear God, like please let us get through this song" or something. And at the end, he says, "Yeah, we did it. Get up." They censored it, and I just censored myself. That was a pretty good trick, and that's what you learn to do when you do radio for a long time. Yes, I was on the radio, and so I love hearing that ending. Like they're joyously celebrating that they didn't mess it up, which is funny because throughout the track, Rivers almost sounds disinterested or not really feeling singing it. The rest of the guys are totally into it, and it's a pretty good performance. But his vocals are kind of sleepy or a little bit lackadaisical. But I kind of like that vibe, and it's again nostalgic because you just think of him standing up there with a suit like he was wearing at the time and just trying to sing this song. I kind of like it. I mean, it's one of my favorite Weezer songs ever, so it's nice to have it in a live package like this. Side 2 opens with Death and Destruction, and this song has had various lives over the years. It's been instrumental here and there. It's been, the version with words. It's kind of had a different kind of growth over time. I remember in 2005 when I saw them, they played an instrumental version of it, no words. And I was a little bummed because I wanted to hear the words. It's one of my favorite songs by them. I think it's absolutely beautiful. But, yeah, they open with some instrumental jamming, kind of like they did on side 1. And then Rivers kind of instructs the band when to come in, and they all jump in at the same time. But yeah, I love the starkness on this song. I love the drama. I love the emotion. The guitars on it are wailing, for lack of a better term, and really powerful performance. I really enjoyed this one. I think the biggest thing I like about this song is you can hear them improvising, and it's nice to see that creativity on stage because you just don't see that from them anymore. They kind of go up there, do their songs, and get off stage. But at this point in their career, Scott was new in the band. I think they were probably just trying to feel their creativity together and get that jam going on and see what was working and what was gelling. And he's just an incredible bass player. So any of the things he played on at this point just really worked well. His style worked well with Weezer. But yeah, again, it's cool to hear this brand new song, being 4 albums in. It's just, it's a trip to go back in time with this thing. At the end, Rivers says, "That's a song from our new album, Frankie Goes to Hollywood," and then he mockingly laughs along with the audience. El Scorcho is the second song on side 2, and this was a pretty common song for them to play. This one was always like a constant. It came up pretty often. But Rivers messes up the words in the second verse, and I like that they kept that on here. I like that they used that version of the song because it makes them seem human and really gives the impression of a live album, you know. So nothing ever comes off perfectly when they're playing live for any band. But I do like this version overall. And then the last track out here, Holiday, just that screaming riff on the intro. I love the guitars on this song. You can tell they're really, really into playing this one because they probably hadn't played it in a while. And it just sounds fresh, it sounds invigorated, it sounds powerful and full of life. And the best part on this thing is when Scott messes up the bridge, the we will write a postcard to our friends and family in free verse. Yeah, so he messes that part up and Brian kind of coaxes him on to try to get him to remember how the words go, and Rivers is like, "Come on, dude!" Like it was a good brotherhood moment of being in a band, which I enjoyed hearing that. And at the very end, Rivers announces that Scott won a Grammy for his performance on that song. So overall, I really do enjoy this album. I think it's a heck of a lot of fun. It's short, it's less than a half hour long, but great song choices. You know, there's no Buddy Holly on here, which is kind of cool. There's no Say It Ain't So, or, you know, which, again, I love those songs, but it's nice to hear something different. So you're ending with Holiday, you get Death and Destruction, you get Falling For You, they open with Dope Nose, really cool set. And this particular pressing on Mobile Fidelity, which, if you're not familiar with Mobile Fidelity, they make some of the best sounding records you will ever hear. Perfectly pristine copies of these albums and really heavy cardboard sleeves. I have all of their albums on the MoFi label, and they all sound fantastic. They really sound great. But yeah, this was kind of a fun one to do for me. Lion and the Witch has always been an album that I feel doesn't get talked about a whole lot, especially if you weren't even aware of it coming out, because I don't remember there being a whole lot of promotion for this, but being the Weezer fan I was at that time, back in 2002, I mean, I was all over the place looking for any scrap of information about this band at that time. So I remember it coming out, and I remember never finding it. But, you know, got the CD a couple years later. I think I have several copies of it, because one of them was broken, and I had to get another one. And then this came out, I think, 4 years ago, maybe 2013. So it's out there. I think it's still on sale. I doubt that they've probably sold out of this thing. I could be wrong. But yeah, Weezer, Lion and the Witch. I'd probably give this thing an 8 out of 10. I wish it was longer. That's my only negative thing about it. They did end up putting live shows out on CD and for download on their website in the later 2000s for the Memories Tour. But I wish they would come out with an official live album. They've been a band for 25 years now. They can do it. They have the set list, they have the energy, they have the amount of hits. They can get away with a live album and no problem. So yeah, Weezer, Lion of the Witch. I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. So I really enjoyed this. Have you heard it? What do you think of it? My name is Giggens. This has been Album Reviews with me, Giggens, and Weezer, the Lion and the Witch. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.